Erling Haaland to Man City, Ousmane Dembele to Barcelona, or this summer's transfer of Jude Bellingham to Real Madrid. Borussia Dortmund was able to develop some of the world's best talents in the last couple of years. The strategy seems simple: buy young, talented players, make them world class, and then sell them to Europe's giants. But how do they do it? And why exactly Borussia Dortmund out of all teams? In this video, I'm going to answer these questions and I will give you 5 reasons on Dortmund's success. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit a like and subscribe to the channel to never miss an interesting football story again. But now, let's get straight into it. So, the first reason on why Dortmund is so successful with young talents is obviously their scouting. Borussia Dortmund has one of the best scouting departments out of any top team on the planet. They start scouting the players at an extremely young age, so they cannot be contacted by any other team. The transfer strategy fits perfectly into this theme as well, signing young, talented players who could become world class and become generational talents. And they were expert in what they're doing because they're doing this for nearly 10-15 years now already. This is also how they got incredibly talented gems like Jadon Sancho or Jamie Bino Gittens from Manchester City, or the really young Juan Will from RSC Anderlecht, which is a bit more recent. And therefore the transfer fees Dortmund has to pay for these players are a lot cheaper than for players that would be maybe like 2-3 years older. And especially these really young players have a perfect opportunity to gain game time, first of all in their under-19s team, and then in their under-23s team, which plays in the 3rd division of German football, which can most definitely be called professional already. Another point that is really important for the scouts is the mentality of the players. They want highly disciplined and mature players that perfectly fit into Dortmund's philosophy. And finally, the scouting aims to find players that fit perfectly into Borussia Dortmund's playstyle. And this brings us to the second point, which would be Dortmund's attractive style of play. Borussia Dortmund is well known all around Europe for a spectacular attacking style of football. That suits really young talented attacking players especially because they have more room for scoring goals, making assists and just have a bigger impact on the game. Players like Jude Bellingham or also Jadon Sancho were given a lot of freedom on the pitch as well to really show what they can do, show their abilities, show their real strengths, and just have a big impact at a really young age on the pitch already. Dortmund scored 2.3 goals per game this season already, which is quite a lot, and this shows exactly that their aim is not to defend at first, but more just scoring more goals than the opponent. This really attack-heavy style of play helped Dortmund to finish in the Champions League spots for 11 years now in a row, which brings us to point number 3, their sporting success. Dortmund is always capable of winning titles and at least try and challenge Bayern Munich for the Bundesliga title, but let's be honest, we all know Bayern Munich is just playing in another league at this point. But being at the top 4 in the top 5 league for over a decade now is of course something young players acknowledge. And they, as I told you already, basically play Champions League every single year, which is a really big selling point for Borussia Dortmund. And they're not just participating. In 8 out of the last 10 Champions League runs, Borussia Dortmund at least reached the round of 16 and had some really crazy campaigns with the Champions League final in 2013 as a highlight. This is of course incredible for really young talented players because they were able to show their talent, their potential on the biggest stage in Europe against the best teams on the planet. Just think about how Erling Haaland toyed Paris Saint-Germain in the round of 16 in the 2020-21 season. He was just insane, scored like 2 goals in the first leg, so that was really impressive. And this just shows you these players, when they play really great on this kind of stage, they're just really attractive for the big teams then. So now let's move on to the maybe most important point for Borussia Dortmund's strategy, and that is of course their reputation. The Borussia is just the best team when it comes down to bringing world-class talents to world-class. Everyone in Europe knows this, not only German fans I think. The list of positive examples for this is incredibly long. I already named a few, but I still want to highlight a few of Dortmund's most insane transfers in the last couple of years. Of course, we have Erling Haaland. They got him for 20 million by RB Salzburg and they sold him to Manchester City for 60 million. We all know how good he is, so I think I don't have to explain this at all. But Jadon Sancho as well, only 20 million and they sold him for a whopping 58 million to Manchester United. crazy. Of course, there's also Jude Bellingham. We all seen it in the summer for over 100 million. But I think you might have forgotten about Christian Pulisic. They sold him for 64 million to Chelsea. And there are still way more players I could name, like Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, Henrik Mkhitaryan, or İlkay Gündogan as well. But the best deal by far for me was Ousmane Dembele for 135 million euros to FC Barcelona. Dortmund just had him for one season. They got him from Stade Rennes for 35 million, so they just made 100 million in 1 year, which is insane. And I think this list just shows that when you're a youngster and you go to Borussia Dortmund, you just have a really high probability of becoming a world-class player. It's just how it is. And this makes the German Giants, of course, a great destination for these players. Of course, there are also some negative examples I have to name. For example, Emre Mor, the ex-Turkish wonder kid, who basically just vanished in the Turkish league at this point, not really playing for Fenerbahce. Or maybe even worse, Ciro Immobile, who did not get a foot on at Dortmund and now is playing insanely good at Lazio. He could be considered world class even. So now let's move on to the final point why Dortmund is a great destination for young talented players, and that has to be the fans and the atmosphere in Dortmund Stadium, the Signal Iduna Park. I mean, imagine playing in front of 80,000 people every single game has to be insane for like an 18, 19-year-old. Especially when you recognize that these fans are not just sitting there. They do insane tifos. They do like these fire rocket shows every single game basically. They celebrate everything with their team, are super loyal, and therefore they're players in good and bad times. So that is really special. I'd say their fans are probably amongst the top 5 of the best fans in Europe. I know a few of you might disagree on this with me, but I think this is just factual. And some might say, oh, but fans, they are not that important, and you can't be further from the truth, because in my personal opinion, football with fans is everything, and football without fans is just nothing really. And even though Borussia Dortmund has this gigantic fan base, the pressure on the players is not that high, because Dortmund is just not in that international spotlight, which helps the players to develop slowly and steadily, and the pressure by fans and also the club in general is not that high as like for teams like Real Madrid or Barcelona. So there we have it. These are the top 5 reasons why Borussia Dortmund is the best address for top talents in Europe. Do you agree with my points, or did I even miss something? Please let me know in the comments what you think about Dortmund's strategy, and I hope we see you next time again. But for now, peace.